U.S. Surgeon General announcing that firearm violence is a public health concern, and you've got some reaction pouring in on that issue. Welcome in. It's Bishop on Air. Thanks for being here. And those of you who tune in regularly to Bishop on Air, a reminder that we're going to be transitioning the live program each and every weekday morning to America's Talking Network, where you can get the latest on Illinois and states across the country from the center square. So go to America's Talking Network on YouTube, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. At some date certain here in the future, the live Bishop on Air program is going to be moving to America's Talking Network with Illinois in Focus daily. Some of the things we talk about, of course, focus on Illinois. Other things, obviously, dealing with the Second Amendment, which a lot of you have questions continuing on about that. So let's hear what the Surgeon General had to say about firearm violence. This was published yesterday through the U.S. Surgeon General's YouTube channel.
Hello, I'm U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy. Today, for the first time in the history of our office, I am issuing a Surgeon General's advisory on firearm violence. It outlines the urgent threat firearm violence poses to the health and well-being of our country. As a doctor, I've seen the consequences of firearm violence up close in the lives of the patients I've cared for over the years. These are moms and dads, sons and daughters, all of whom were robbed of their physical and mental health by senseless acts of violence. Unfortunately, the problem has continued to grow. 54% of adults in America report that they or a family member have experienced a firearm-related incident, whether they've been personally threatened with or injured by a firearm, lost a family member, witnessed a shooting, or shot a firearm in self-defense. Many of these harms are disproportionately felt in our communities. Black individuals endure the highest rates of firearm homicides, while suicide rates are highest among veterans, older white individuals, and younger American Indian and Alaska Native people. What is especially devastating is how this has affected our children. Firearm violence has become the #1 cause of death among children and adolescents, more than car accidents or drug overdoses. I've sat with parents who've lost a child to firearm violence. I've listened to their stories and felt their pain as they describe the holes in their hearts. As a father, I know a parent's worst nightmare is to lose a child, to feel like you can't protect your child from harm.
So again, that's the Surgeon General talking about firearm violence being a public health concern. And he used this chart, which is kind of interesting, that is posted on their website as well. And it talks about firearm violence, the leading cause of death for children and adolescents. All right. So again, children and adolescents. But you look there and it says 1 to 19 years of age. So some people point at that and say, well, those 18 to 19 are not children. And you can see where some of the consternation comes from all of this. But there's obviously reaction to this. We'll share some of what Governor J.B. Pritzker had to say yesterday here in Illinois. But the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, they released this statement yesterday. Gun ownership is not a disease, it's a protected right. So this coming from this organization saying, responding to the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy's outrageous claim that gun-related violence is a public health concern. The Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms declared gun ownership is not a communicable disease. It's a constitutional right. They say that this is one more effort by the Biden administration to demonize gun and the law-abiding citizens who own them. According to Alan Gottlieb, the chairman of the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms, he says the problem with violent crime is not that it is a disease, but a symptom of failed leadership from the White House and down. From the day he took office, Joe Biden has treated gun owners like social lepers. He considers us second-class citizens who should be ostracized as though we are a spreading plague. So again, that's the comments from the Second Amendment community from at least the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. Governor Pritzker was asked about this yesterday at his bill signing ceremony, and this is some of what he had to say in response to the U.S. Surgeon General saying that gun violence, quote unquote, gun violence, is a public health crisis.
Well, I'm proud that Illinois has led the way in this regard. I do think it's important to recognize that this is, an area where we need to put new emphasis. Remember, I think one of the reasons for a declaration like this is to remind people that early intervention, just like with healthcare, early intervention, what do we say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure? That is true also when it comes to gun violence, that making sure that we're making the proper investments early into communities where we know there is a problem with violence, making sure that we're deterring people from getting engaged in things that they shouldn't by providing jobs, by making sure we have violence intervention programs that are funded. I would just point to one other thing. You may recall that back in, I think it was 2020 or 2019, there was a study released by Northwestern University that showed that one of the reasons for the uptick, significant rise in crime in Chicago and across the country, but they were talking particularly about Illinois and Chicago, was the disinvestment under the prior administration, I'm talking about the administration of Illinois, from those early intervention programs in those communities. The fact that we had no budget for 2 years, many of those violence interruption programs actually had to close. And then you saw some of the results of that with the rise in violent crime across the city. So I think that's something to keep in mind as the Surgeon General has made his declaration and as we move forward in the kinds of programs and investments that we make in the state of Illinois.
So still some questions, though, about what those investments are, the impact on taxpayers. According to analysis of the state budget that's about to go into effect, you've got, $185 million going to the Department of Human Services to be distributed to approximately 200 different organizations for violence prevention and youth summer jobs programs. Again, that's $185 million for violence prevention grants and youth summer jobs programs going to 200 different organizations. How does the governor ensure that that money is going to be spent efficiently and wisely and actually get true outcomes from that level of spending? A question he was asked about yesterday.
I think the great news is that there are private, independent folks who are monitoring things like this. If you look at CRED, for example, in the city, they've looked at the communities where they're making investments and where other investments have been made, and they've watched the violent crime numbers come down in those communities as we invest with those programs. The state of Illinois does. And so we think that it's very important to track and trace what happens with the dollars that we put into those programs, and it does prove to work. And then you see the reverse of it in the years prior. Take the money away, violence increases.
So the governor taking questions yesterday. He could take more off-topic questions today, but up in Cook County, you've got the Firearms Policy Coalition announcing their filing in the 7th Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in Viramontes v. Cook County, which is the Cook County ban on assault weapons, semi-automatic firearms that the letter of the law has defined as, quote, assault weapons. But Viramontes, in this case, with the Second Amendment being a question here, going to the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals, FPC President Brandon Combs says their brief makes clear Cook County's authoritarian ban on protected arms is totally unconstitutional. And they say they'll continue to fight forward to oppose this ban and all others like it and make sure that they're eliminated. But one of the things they do is they also highlight some of the arguments that Justice Sonia Sotomayor made about the ATF and pretty much admitting that semi-automatic firearms are in common use. So interesting to see that conversation happening yesterday as well. I'm bringing it to you here with Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Thank you so much for taking time with us. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for Illinois in Focus Daily with America's Talking Network and the Center Square.